Michael Jordan jogged toward center court, his cleats clicking against the polished hardwood of the United Center just after the 2-minute warning. The scoreboard glowed ominously. Chicago Bulls 97, Detroit Pistons 98. Fans roared around him, a wave of noise that threatened to drown every thought in his mind. He wiped sweat from his brow, every drop a reminder of the stakes. This was Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, 1991. Jordan's first season in the playoffs, but it already felt as if his entire career hinged on these final moments. Behind Jordan, referee Joey Crawford's whistle had just sounded to halt play. Crawford, a veteran official known for his toughness and unwavering adherence to the rulebook, strode toward the scorer's table to report a technical foul. His sharp eyes scanned the Bulls' huddle, then fixed on Jordan. In the instant before he spoke, Jordan felt that familiar knot in his stomach, the sense that a single misstep here could haunt him for years. Technical foul number 23, bench warning, Crawford announced over the public address system in his clipped authoritative tone. His gaze met Jordan's, and briefly the world narrowed to just the two of them. Jordan's jaw clenched. He had barked encouragement at his teammates too loudly after Scottie Pippen's driving layup, and Crawford had deemed it unsportsmanlike. Now the Pistons would shoot 2 free throws and regain possession. Detroit's bench erupted in jubilation. Jordan inhaled deeply, cupping his hands on his hips. In his mind he replayed the moment. Pippen's crossover on Joe Dumars, the defender stumbling as Pippen rose for the layup. The half-court horn had sounded just as Pippen released the ball. The hoop had glowed red, and the basket counted. Through all the noise, Jordan had raised his arms in celebration, letting out a guttural yell. Only afterward did he realize how hard he'd roared, a split-second lapse that now threatened to undo the entire sequence. Joey Crawford returned to his position near the top of the key, arms folded, posture rigid as steel. The crowd booed, some chanting Crawford's name, others chanting MVP at Jordan. He survived boos every night, but tonight, every murmur, every gasp felt amplified. Jordan's mind buzzed. I have to focus. I can't let him. Crawford get inside my head. Crawford tapped his whistle and play resumed. Seconds later, Dennis Rodman stepped to the free throw line. Jordan watched every micro-adjustment Rodman made, the slight bounce of the ball, the position of his feet. The first shot arced toward the basket, nothing but net. The second dribbled off the rim. Jordan exhaled as Grant Hill leapt, pawing at the rebound before Rodman knocked it away. Hill gathered the ball and passed it into Isaiah Thomas, the Pistons' fiery point guard. Sparks of electricity shot through the crowd as Thomas dribbled up court. Jordan stalked Thomas like a shark, arms stretched wide, feet shuffling. He had already scored 33 points in the game. He was exhausted, but adrenaline lent him wings. Thomas spun off a screen set by Bill Laimbeer, created enough space to fire a 3 toward the left corner. The ball sailed, but rims out. Jordan rushed forward. Pippen soared higher, snared the rebound and dribbled back to midcourt. He glanced toward Jordan, nodded and shifted the offense into motion. Crawford was close enough to hear Pippen's quick signal. He tensed, ready for any violation, travel, double dribble, illegal screen. Yet Pippen's execution was perfect. Jordan's pulse throbbed. He knew the next 10 seconds would decide the conference. Pippen dribbled toward the left wing, sizing up Dennis Rodman in the paint. He squared his shoulders, hesitated for just a heartbeat, long enough for Rodman to commit to shutting down the drive. Then Pippen kicked the ball back to Jordan, who was already firing up from the arc. The gym held its breath as the ball left Jordan's fingertips. It banked high, kissed the backboard and dropped through the net. Bulls lead, 198, with 12 seconds left. Pandemonium broke loose. Red jerseys sprang into motion. As Jordan jogged toward the bench, triumphant, the entire arena thundered with cheers. But Crawford's whistle cut through the chaos, stopping Jordan mid-stride. Jordan's eyes snapped to the referee. Crawford raised his arm, pointing accusingly at Jordan. 12-second violation on the shooter, number 23. The announcement echoed across the court. Jordan's pulse ricocheted. A 12-second violation? He had released the shot in less than 12 seconds from the inbound, but perhaps his foot had brushed the midcourt line, giving Crawford grounds to call a violation. The technicality hung in the air like a guillotine blade. The Pistons would inbound the ball from half-court with the 2-point lead. Jordan stared, incredulous. He felt as though someone had punched him in the gut. "Are you kidding me?" Jordan's voice thundered across the court, but his outburst was cut short as Crawford shoved back his whistle, lips pressed tight. There was no reversal. The referees huddled briefly, then Crawford jogged away, as if to dissolve into the sea of spectators. Jordan's breath came in ragged gasps. He stormed toward the scorer's table, hand raised, demanding an explanation. He crossed the plane. "That's bullshit," he barked at the head official, Michael Smith. "I released it before." Smith lifted his hand. "Allah, enough. Number 23, control yourself. We'll discuss it after the game." But Jordan didn't care about discussion after. He pivoted toward the court, shoulder bumping past teammates who tried to steady him. "I want Crawford out here for this," he demanded. Security tensed. Crawford lingered near half-court, arms crossed, glancing toward Jordan with cold, unreadable eyes. The Pistons inbounded quickly. Thomas handed off to Rodman, who spun left, pumped twice, then drove to the basket. Jordan met him. They collided at the rim. Rodman spun out, mid-air, twisting as Jordan's forearm grazed his ribs. The whistle sounded. A foul on Jordan. One free throw. Detroit claps into the gasping air. As Rodman shot, Jordan retreated to the three-point line, shoulders slumped. The ball hit iron. A collective sigh swept the crowd. With 7 seconds remaining, the Pistons stood 9. Pippen sprinted toward Jordan, still fresh enough to chase the rebound down. He corralled the ball, launched it to Jordan at half-court. Jordan took 2 dribbles, stepped back to the right, hesitated as he eyed the basket and the bouncing seconds on the clock. Behind him, stained, uniform number 32 lumbered up. Crawford was there, hands on his hips, scrutinizing the play. Jordan twisted left, pulled up at the free-throw line, his jumper soared, a perfect rainbow under the bright lights. But before the shot landed, the final buzzer sounded. The horn blared. The ball clanked off the rim. The Pistons stormed the court. Cameras flashed wildly. Jordan stood at the top of the key, lifeless, arms dangling. Crawford blew his whistle one last time, signaling the end of Game 7. For a moment, the world stood still. Jordan closed his eyes, blinking back instinctive tears. He had fought all night, through calls both right and wrong, through pain in his Achilles and the pressure to prove himself in his first playoff run, and had lost the chance to silence his doubters. From the Pistons bench, Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, grinning ear to ear, chanted, "Bad call, bad call." The fans booed in agreement. Everyone had blamed Crawford's ruling for tilting the outcome. Jordan tried to exit the court, but the sea of reporters prevented pass. He weaved between cameras and scribbling notebooks. Suddenly an arm guided him to safety. Phil Jackson, steady and calm, placing a hand on his shoulder. "MJ, come with me," Jackson urged. Jordan nodded, blinking rapidly. In the tunnel, as the crowd's roar faded to a distant hum, Jordan slumped against the wall. His breathing rattled like a fallen warrior's. Jackson crouched beside him, voice quiet but firm. "Michael, you won that game in spirit, not on the scoreboard. Remember that." Jordan stared blankly ahead, anger and heartache warring in his gaze. "Spirit," he spat the word. "He took 25 seconds from me for no reason. I released that shot clean. I felt the swish." He closed his eyes as if willing himself to breathe. "I can't snap out of it." Jackson allowed a moment of silence to hang before continuing. "Referees make mistakes. Sometimes good ones, like Crawford, get it wrong. You want change next year. You fight through this, get stronger. The league sees what happened. They'll remember." Jordan's fist collided with his own thigh, a dull thud echoing in the narrow hallway. "I'm not asking for pity. I'm angry that it cost us the last step to the finals. I'm angry at Crawford." "That's normal." Jackson paused, gauging his player's eyes. "But anger can be fuel, or it can be poison. You decide." Jackson stood, offering Jordan a hand. Jordan took it, pulling himself upright. Minutes later, in the cramped locker room, Jordan peeled off his jersey and wiped the heavy sweat and disappointment from his face. Taped to the locker wall above his bench was a photo. Jordan soaring under the East Rutherford sky in '88, defying gravity for the shot against Cleveland. He stared at it briefly, as though drawing courage from a past triumph. Then, the door creaked. Joey Crawford entered, face grim, the overhead fluorescent lights illuminating beads of sweat on his forehead. He closed the door behind him quietly. The locker room, once buzzing, had fallen silent in anticipation. Jordan sat on the bench, legs spread, hands clasped together. Crawford took a measured step forward, clearing his throat. "Number 23, Crawford began, tone uncharacteristically subdued. "May I have a moment?" Jordan rose slowly, wiping his chin. He stared at Crawford, fists clenched at his sides. Crawford's face registered a flicker of regret. Jordan's shoulders tense, but he didn't speak. Crawford inhaled. "I've officiated over 15 seasons in the NBA. I've faced my share of criticism. Tonight, I made a mistake on that 12-second violation call. I watched the replay afterward, and I can see that you released the shot in 11 seconds, not 12. You were clean." Jordan's breath stuck in his throat. He stared at Crawford, The anger he'd felt only moments before threatened to melt into confusion. Crawford continued, voice low but steady, "I was too quick to blow the whistle. I thought I saw your back foot cross the half-court stripe before the shot, but in slow motion I was wrong. That call was mine, and it changed the outcome." Jordan's heart pounded so loud he could hear every beat. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the floor, breathing in slowly, letting the reality settle. Crawford took another step, awkwardly reaching into his back pocket. "I know this doesn't fix the result, but I need you to know I'm sorry. You deserve better, and I failed you." He produced a pen, extended it toward Jordan. On the barrel was etched the signature of a dozen superstars: Bird, Magic, Johnson, who had requested autographs from Crawford after realizing how tough life was for a ref in the NBA. "I want you to have this," Crawford said, placing the pen gently in Jordan's hands. "It's my signature. It has meaning to me. I want you to have it as a reminder. Mistakes happen, but we learn from them." Jordan stared at the pen, fingers brushing its cool metal. He looked up at Crawford, his expression unreadable. Crawford turned to leave, pausing at the door. "I hope you'll keep fighting," he said quietly, before closing the door. For a long minute Jordan remained motionless, clenched jaw releasing its tension only slightly. Then he sank to the bench and ran his hands through his hair. He felt the rough leather of the pen in his palm, a small gift from the man who had nearly cost him everything. He closed his eyes, the pen's weight settling into his palm like a promise. Moments later, Phil Jackson returned to the locker room. He paused at the doorway, observing Jordan's dejected stance. Slowly, Jordan looked up at his coach, tears running down his cheeks unbidden. Jackson approached and crouched in front of him, arms wide. Jordan leaned into the embrace. For a while, neither said a word. Joey Crawford returned to his position near the top of the key, arms folded, posture rigid as steel. The crowd booed, some chanting Crawford's name, others chanting MVP at Jordan. He survived boos every night, but tonight, every murmur, every gasp felt amplified. Jordan's mind buzzed. "I have to focus. I can't let him. Crawford get inside my head." Crawford tapped his whistle and play resumed. Seconds later, Dennis Rodman stepped to the free throw line. Jordan watched every micro-adjustment Rodman made, the slight bounce of the ball, the position of his feet. The first shot arced toward the basket, nothing but net. The second dribbled off the rim. Jordan exhaled as Grant Hill leapt, pawing at the rebound before Rodman knocked it away. Hill gathered the ball and passed it into Isaiah Thomas, the Pistons' fiery point guard. Sparks of electricity shot through the crowd as Thomas dribbled up court. Finally, Jordan lifted his head. "He apologized," he whispered, voice raw. "Crawford said he was wrong." He offered Jackson the pen. Jackson took it gently, turning it in his hands. "Not just an apology," Jackson said softly. He admitted he made a mistake. "There's strength in that. Now, what will you do with yours?" Jordan swallowed hard. He rose from the bench, folding the pen into the pocket of his warm-ups. He straightened, eyes blazing with renewed fire. "I'll remember this," he said, voice firm. "Next time, I'll be sharper. I'll be better. I won't let a single call define me." Jackson nodded. "That's the spirit. We'll review, we'll learn, but tomorrow, we move on." Jordan walked toward his locker, loosing the laces on his shoes, mind already shifting to the off-season, to endless workouts, to relentless pursuit of another shot at the title. He glanced once more at the jersey hanging in his locker. Number 23. The weight of that number no longer felt like a burden. It felt like a challenge, to rise above mistakes, his own and those of others, and forge a legacy untarnished. Outside, the echoes of the crowd had drifted into the night. On the hardwood, the ripple of a basketball being dribbled one last time spoke to Jordan's DNA. Competition, resilience, an unyielding desire to achieve greatness. He exhaled, steadying himself. The sting of defeat still burned, but now it was transforming into resolve. A few steps later, Jordan stopped at the door of the coach's office. He remembered Crawford's words. "We learn from mistakes." He reached into his pocket, the pen heavy in his palm. Then he set it down on Jackson's desk, beside a folded game script from that night. Jackson looked up as Jordan entered. "Coach," Jordan said, tone quiet. He pointed to the pen. "He says it's for me, to remind me of tonight." Jackson picked it up, studying the names etched on the barrel. Referees had inked their own signatures over time, transforming it into a talisman. "Keep it," Jackson said. "Whenever you doubt yourself, read the names. You'll see champions and legends, and remember, they all face setbacks too." Jordan nodded, settled into the chair opposite Jackson's desk. They sat together in silence as the night settled over the United Center, the scoreboard still glowing like an ember left in the forest. The grin that slowly formed on Jordan's face was not triumphant. Instead, it was the quiet smile of a man ready to rebuild, to use adversity as fuel. He would return next season, hungrier than ever. He would study film, refocus, and push himself to heights no one could imagine. In his pocket, the pen remained a symbol. Sometimes the greatest victories come not in the final buzzer beater, but in how one chooses to rise from a fall. And Michael Jordan, boy or man, never knew how to stay down. Tonight, as he turned off the lights in the empty arena and strode toward the tunnel, Jordan carried two things with him: the weight of defeat and the spark of determination. The former would fade with time, the latter would ignite a flame that would torch any doubt, any obstacle, any referee, Crawford or otherwise, standing between him and his destiny.